Hey, what's up, Unbroken Nation? So,
Mhm.
when you're in this fracture, you want to be able to step in and figure out who you are, to let go of the shame and the guilt that's associated with it, understanding probably that it's tied into the way you were loved. How do you start to build confidence, belief, self love, like the things that you need to do to traverse that fracture into being whole?
Yeah. Well, I think it's the key where many people kind of leap over and don't want to address is really owning what happened. And there's often more often than not many what happened, not just one thing that happened, but also more importantly, there are the facts or the remembrances of what happened. But there even more importantly is those parts of yourselves that you disconnected to when those things happened. And so what I try to help people understand is that we all have all these parts of ourselves that are like, it's almost like if you can envision yourself made up of a million different puzzle pieces of all these different little parts of yourself at all these different ages and stages of life that you just kind of disconnected from and put in a basement somewhere. And we spend our lives not wanting to, just like when I was a kid, when most people are kids, there was that dark, scary basement in your grandma's house or something, and you kind of run by. No one wants to go near there. God forbid you got to go down there and get something. It's really scary. There are monsters in the basement. I'm not even going to look there. Right. And we do that to ourselves. And so more often than not, I find that people there are all these parts of ourselves that we don't want to be with or see because there's so much shame and confusion and darkness. And we're still connected to the fear that we felt as that 3-year-old, 5-year-old, 7-year-old, 10-year-old, whatever it was. And so we don't even want to look at it and so we just spend our lives pushing that aside, pretending it's not there. And of course, those are the ones that are driving the bus in our relationships, right? Those are the ones that are reacting when we're triggered or making these unhealthy decisions in love. If we were to make those decisions from the conscious whole person adult that we are now, we would make them differently. But the ones that are kind of making those decisions are those smaller, hurt, shadow parts of ourselves. So for me, so much of healing comes from welcoming all of those parts to the table. And what I find more often than not is, like if you go down into that dark, scary basement and you're expecting all these ghouls and evil beings and poltergeists and crazy things down there, you turn on the light and it's all these sweet little innocent, beautiful little younger parts of yourself. And all they want is for you to see them
Mm.
and integrate them and be there for them in the way you would a child or a friend or a loved one, the way you are for plenty of people in your life. It's about being willing to do that for yourself. And what I find time and time again, which is one of the most beautiful parts of the work that I do, is that when shame is exposed to the light, it almost always evaporates. And so that is such a huge part of healing because that's how those parts of yourself can be integrated. And now they're in your conscious awareness. So when you're next presented with that circumstance where you put up a wall or you sabotage or you overreact or you run away, you are aware and you're like, "Oh, that's that little 7-year-old that learned that love can't be trusted, or that if I open my heart that it'll get stomped on or I'll be gobsmacked." No, sweet one, that is not that's not the truth, right? I understand why you adopted that belief because that was all you could understand. A child is narcissistic by nature. Everything that happens around them is because of them, right? So if mom or dad hurt me or leave me or abuse me, I must deserve it. If I were more of something or less of something, then they wouldn't do that. That's how a child's mind work. Now, that's not how we look at it as adults. If a child were to come to say that to us as an adult, we would say, of course, that's not true. But we don't do that for ourselves because we're not willing to be with those parts of ourselves or we don't know how to.